Okay, so in this lecture we're going to talk a little bit about the region known as the Maghreb. And the Maghreb is located here in the same region as the Atlas Mountains. And this is really the only significant mountain range on the African continent. We're going to talk about why that is in the next module. And so it has impacts on the climate, on the cultural geography, and the agricultural opportunities in the area. Okay, so the full name is, in Arabic, is Jazira al-Maghreb, which means the Isle of the West. And it's called that because of the Atlas mountain range rising above the sandy flatlands of the Sahara. So they almost look like islands rising out of a sandy sea. Covers countries of Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, and is neighbored by Libya, Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Mauritania. This area also kind of pushes into the African Transition Zone, which is also known as the Sahel. And the Transition Zone is it's a transition from desert to grassland to forest. It's a transition from predominantly Muslim areas to predominantly Christian areas. It's a transition zone in just about every definition of the word. So, like I keep saying, we'll talk about that more in Module 8. Okay, so this map shows the Maghreb and the countries covered by the Maghreb. And I also want you to notice the red dotted outline that shows the Tuareg ethnic group in the area that they inhabit. We're going to talk about the Tuareg at the end. Okay, so the Atlas Mountains create this effect called orographic rainfall. And oro just means mountain. So it's like mountain effect rainfall. So the moist rising air from the Mediterranean gets pushed up in elevation by the mountains. The water vapor cools and condenses and it falls as rain. But that means that the air that goes over the mountains is devoid of moisture, and so you have a rain shadow on the other side of the mountain away from the Mediterranean. This is the exact same effect that we see in Kansas with the Rocky Mountains. So the west side of the Rocky Mountains tend to get all of the precipitation, and it causes a rain shadow on the east side, so we have the Great Plains or the high desert that are very low precipitation areas. Okay, so when the Maghreb was, when these countries were part of the European colonies, there were major cities built a lot, kind of along the Mediterranean coast. So Tunis and Tunisia, Casablanca and Morocco, and then Algiers and Algeria are famously these French and Italian influenced cities. So many Europeans moved there, and it still has a heavy European presence today in these areas. And there's also some really good Mediterranean agriculture that the majority of it is exported to Europe. So in Algeria, they grow wine grapes and dates. Tunisian olive oil is very famous. Oranges in Morocco. So it's where you get those nice Mediterranean crops from. Okay, we'll talk just a little bit about Libya. Libya was an Italian colony. They have large oil reserves. They're part of that North African oil deposit. And so they were able to build their economy based on oil. And they gained independence, like most of these countries in this region. They gained independence after World War II. Theirs came in 1951. But they experienced the same struggles with democracy building as other countries in this realm. So by 1969, this man here, named Muammar Gaddafi, seized power in a military coup d'etat, and he ruled for 42 years. And he was only removed when the Arab Spring spread to Libya from Tunisia in 2011. And Gaddafi was one of the more heavy-handed responders to the Arab Spring. He didn't step down willingly. He fought back against his own people. And it took 9 months of fighting to remove him from power. And so Libya is not a NATO country, and there was some debate about how much the West and America should get involved. And those militaries did not end up getting directly involved, but the NATO coalition enforced a no-fly zone and did bomb key military targets in Libya to try to help out the protesters to remove Gaddafi from power. And Gaddafi was actually shocked by this because he had thought that the different countries that were bombing him were allies or friends. He had done business with them. It hadn't always been a friendly relationship, but he did not expect them to help remove him from power. So he went into hiding, but they did eventually find him. He was captured and killed, and it was all recorded on cell phone videos. It was pretty gruesome. But even after Gaddafi was killed, the country really remains in political chaos. It is still struggling to establish a democratic government. And I always have to put up this picture because Gaddafi was quite a character. He, for whatever reason, he demanded that he have an all-female security detail. So his bodyguards were always women. And so this is one picture of him arriving at a diplomatic event with his all-female security detail. And you might recognize this guy. That's Viktor Yushchenko from Ukraine when he was president. So just kind of interesting. Okay, finally, the Tuareg. The Tuareg are a minority ethnic group that has occupied the Saharan desert area for thousands of years. And they're also known as the blue men of the desert because they wear these indigo cloths that when you sweat, the dye kind of gets into your skin a little bit. And so even when they take off the wraps, they might still have that blue tinge to their skin from the indigo wraps. So they're also called blue men of the desert. And they have been the desert couriers for thousands of years. They know how to survive in the Sahara better than anyone else. They know where the sources of water are. They know what to take for food to keep you alive. And so they, for thousands of years, they have been carrying goods from the forest and the grassland in the sub-Saharan Africa across the desert to the Middle East and to Europe. So they have really facilitated that inland trade route that would have been impossible without them. So some things they carried that they carry, I should use present tense because they are still doing this. Dates, dried meat, Tuareg cheese, garments, salt, and camels. So, like I said, they're still doing this. They still transport goods back and forth across the Sahara. But their way of life is being threatened today by population growth and also by technological advances. So some of the Tuareg groups that can afford to have gotten trucks, and they now, instead of taking these goods back and forth on camel, they go by truck. And so the groups that still depend on camels are getting shut out of the market because they can't carry as much and they can't go as fast as the ones who have trucks. So their way of life is changing, but they are still there, and they are just really fascinating people. So one of the music videos that I'm putting up is a group called Tanarawin, and they are a Tuareg music group. So definitely give them a listen. Let me know what you think, and email me if you have any questions about any of this material. So thanks, everyone.